Hi, my name is Tim Huntington, and I've been helping candidates prepare for the IELTS test for over 10 years now. That's a lot of time to think about how best to optimize candidate scores so that they can get the best possible IELTS band on test day. So there are clearly things you can do in the IELTS test to improve your score without improving your vocabulary or your grammar. Now, don't misunderstand me. IELTS is a really good test of your real English level. So you're not going to score band 8 suddenly if your real level is more like band 5 or 6. However, you probably know more than you think, and certainly more than you are usually showing on test day. So what we're going to talk about today is several grammatical structures that you can use on test day that you probably already know, which will help you quickly improve your band score from, say, a 6 to a 6.5. So we're going to talk about using used to and would to describe past habits. We're going to look at the future, talking about the future using will for the possible future and using going to for something that's a more fixed plan or intention. We're also going to show you a really useful second conditional phrase that you can use in nearly all IELTS Speaking Part 1 tests. And then finally, we're going to talk about using the present perfect and look at some examples of Speaking Part 1 questions where you could use that. So beginning with used to. A lot of questions in IELTS Speaking Part 1 ask you about hobbies, activities, work, studies, and interests. So often the questions are focused or are asked in such a way that they focus on the present, but that doesn't necessarily limit you to talking about the present. So a great way to add some grammatical range is to include a sentence about the past as well, particularly a past habit or past repeated activity using used to. So for example, do you enjoy playing any sports? Well, I used to play a lot of sports at school, especially football and tennis. But these days I don't have much spare time, so I only go to the gym a few times per week. So you'll see there the question asks and focuses on the present, but you can easily begin using used to talk about what you used to do and then show how that's different to what you do today. Next, we'll talk about would. So would is much the same as used to. Again, it's used for hobbies or repeated activities in the past. However, however, would is much better used when you're thinking about a happy memory, when you're thinking about good times in your past, especially in your childhood. So, for example, do you often spend time with extended family? When I was a kid, I would spend the whole summer with my grandparents. But now I'm working, so it's much more difficult to find the time to visit them or any other relatives. So next we're going to incorporate some future statements into our speaking answers. Firstly, we'll talk about using will to talk about the possible future. So using probably will is a great way to answer some IELTS questions. You should look for these opportunities so that you can show you know how to use the future as well. So you can use will when you talk about something you will probably do, but which you haven't planned yet, and you're not 100% sure that you're definitely going to do it. For example, what kind of new food would you like to try? So there's a new French restaurant in the town centre. So I will probably go there soon if I get the chance. I'm keen to try a dish called bœuf bourguignon, which I've heard is absolutely delicious. Okay, so never mind my probably awful pronunciation of the French dish there. The point here is that we're using probably will to show something that we will probably do in the future, but it's not planned and we don't have a really firm intention to do it just yet. Now, next, if you want to talk about the future in a more fixed way, something you're more sure is going to happen, something that's perhaps organized in some way, it's best to use going to. So, for example, if the IELTS question is, do you work or study? You could say, I'm currently working part-time, but I'm going to quit my job in about 6 months because I'm going to study for a master's in the UK. So here, because we know that we are definitely going to do this, it's much more fixed. It's a plan that's organized already. Going to is the best way to show that. Okay, next, we want to try and bring a conditional into our speech if possible. And Although conditionals can be really tricky, if I give you a fixed conditional phrase that you can use in nearly all speaking tests at some point, you're going to be able to do this much more easily. So the phrase is, if I had more time, I would. So you can almost certainly use this for a number of questions. For example, if the IELTS question is, do you read a lot of books? You could say, to be honest, I don't read a lot these days. If I had more time, I would read more as I love science fiction and fantasy books. So finally, we have the present perfect. Now, the present perfect is again something that you really should try to get into your IELTS speaking part one if you can. Usually, the easiest opportunity to do this is when the examiner asks you a question using the present perfect. And so you can immediately reply or begin your reply by mirroring with the present perfect. So, for example, have you ever helped a neighbor? Yes, I have. Actually, just recently, I helped a neighbor who needed to move some new heavy furniture into his apartment. You can also usually use the present perfect to talk about things that started in the past and continue into the present. So, actually, this is probably the number one and most obvious reason for using the present perfect. And there are a number of opportunities in the IELTS Speaking Part 1 test to use the present perfect in this way. So, for example, the question might be, how often do you use public transport? And you could answer, well, I haven't used public transport for ages because I bought a car and now I prefer to use it rather than public transport. So we're using the present perfect to show that something started in the past and continues into the present. Finally, you can use the present perfect to talk about life experiences where you don't give a specific time reference. Again, this is often something you can use in speaking part one, where the questions will ask you about your life, your habits, your hobbies. So, this is a very common thing that you can fit into the speaking test. For example, if they ask you, would you like to work in a foreign country? You could answer, I have never worked abroad before, but it is something I would like to do in the future because it's a great opportunity to experience new things, and I think I would learn a lot too. So, there you have 6 grammar structures that you can include in your IELTS speaking test, which you probably already know, and which could really help quickly improve your speaking score from a 6 to a 6.5, or even from 6.5 to 7. And I think you probably already know all of these grammatical structures. So, what this really is about is practicing these structures, practicing lots of speaking questions, and getting used to using these structures in your answers. So, thinking about using the past, the present, the future more often when you're answering, trying to incorporate different tenses like the present perfect into your answers. And yeah, just generally getting used to using these grammatical structures in your active speech.